trash, you the maid, so you bad. I'm a savage, yeah. Classy, bougie, ratchet, yeah. Sassy, moody, nasty, yeah. Acting stupid, what's happening? Bitch, what was happening? Bitch, I'm a savage.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Murder Meals. Now, before we even start, obviously, your girl's head. Today's gonna be mama dishes of Murder Meals. You know, it's a Sunday. I need to get my week started. I need to meal prep some breakfasts for my kids. I don't know if I said that right. Breakfast for my kids. And y'all need a video, so we're just gonna do it that way. And maybe if my style come out correct, I'll go ahead and throw in a little photo. But if it looks a mess, you'll never see it. But I digress. Today's story is going to be about Lori and Mark Hacking. You probably heard of them, but if not, I'm going to go ahead and give you all the tea. Now, please, if you haven't already done so, go ahead and like, share, subscribe to my channel. It helps me out so much. I'm trying to hit my first goal of 50 subscribers. Oh, and before I forget, let me give a little shout out to my first official fan. Now, I know it ain't nothing, but my girl Aaliyah, you know who you is, girl, gonna ask me to make her some of my banana pudding from my previous video, and she may only be 6, and she may not even be allowed to watch YouTube. That don't mean nothing to me, but shout out to you, Aaliyah. You the one, girl. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump right into it. For today's video, I'm going to be making sausage egg biscuits with ham and potato burritos. I like to make these for my kids, and then I wrap them up and freeze them. So in the morning, they're able to just grab it out and just throw it in the microwave and go. They love it. My son has literally been on my case for the past 2 months to make them. I keep saying, babe, I'm gonna do it. Mommy finally gonna have it. So on July 19, 2004, at around 10:04 a.m., local police received a 911 call from Mark Hacking stating that his wife had been missing. Apparently, she had went on her morning run and she just had never returned. His wife's name was Lori Hacking. And just some backstory about Lori Hacking. Lori Hacking was actually born December 31st, 1976. She was born to a teenage mom who gave her up for adoption. She was later then adopted by her mother and father, Thelma and Harold Soros. I hope I'm not pronouncing that wrong. They had actually also adopted an older son named Paul. Now, for the first 10 years of Lori's life, the family lived together in sunny California, you know, that Cali life. But unfortunately, I got 2 different types of biscuits, y'all. But unfortunately, in 1976, her parents did decide to divorce. So then after the divorce, Lori and her mother decided to move to Utah. She wanted to be closer to the LDS community. And I'm sorry, I don't know if I mentioned that Lori's whole family, they were a part of the LDS community. They were Mormons. She felt like there would be a more supportive community in order to be around since she was now divorced, a single mother, and all of that. Paul decided to stay in California with his father since he was way older and he was close to graduating high school. He wanted to finish out high school in California. Makes sense. It was said that Lori was a very sweet, smart, funny girl. She thrived. She was very popular. She was even elected, I believe it was class president. She was just an all-around good girl. At the age of 15, Lori had went on a camping trip, and this is where she had met Mark. Now, it was said that at first she didn't even notice Mark. She didn't pay him any mind at all. She wasn't worried about him whatsoever. That was until Mark had stuck his hand in a fire pit trying to turn a log of fire. Now, why he did that couldn't have been me. So Lori had stayed with him that whole night, accompanying him, just, you know, making sure he was okay and treating his wounds. And it was said that That night they stayed up all night and they talked so much, just getting to know one another. And after that trip, they were virtually inseparable. Now, some information about Mark Hacking. Mark Hacking was actually born April 24th, 1974. Now, his family was a big family. Parents were Janet and Doug Hacking. Doug was a doctor. He was a pediatrician, so he was very successful. Mark had 3 other brothers, Lance, Scott, and Chad, and he also had 3 other sisters, Tiffany, Sarah, and Julie. Mark was described as a clumsy, goofy kid, prone to just accidents, and he loved to be the center of attention, as most kids do. I know your girl loves her some attention. Now, just like most large families, when it comes to the things that you have, you're going to get a lot of hand-me-down material. And Mark had a lot of it. It was said that a lot of his clothes looked very worn down. He always had like holes and tears in his shoes and in his clothing. But it didn't bother Mark at all. He just took it with a grain of salt and he kept pushing. He made jokes about it. He just did his thing. There was an incident once at camp where Mark had fallen asleep, and while he was asleep, he had rolled into an extinguished fire pit, and whenever he woke up, he was just covered in ash. And you know how kids are. Really not. You know how kids are. They think anything is funny. So when the other kids woke and they saw the way Mark was looking, they thought it was the funniest thing ever. And he got so much attention and just admiration and chucks and giggles, and he just ate that up. This is said to be a pivotal moment in his character development, because going forward, Mark would continue just to do elaborate things in order to seek attention. He would start to tell lies bigger and bigger as he got older, and unfortunately that's what led him to get in trouble on today's case. Now, he was a popular kid. He again met Lori at the camping trip, but they also went to the same high school. Again, they were all a part of the LDS community, and just in that area of Utah, if you're not aware, that is a big Mormon community. So a lot of people who are in that religion all stay in kind of that whole little area. So they attended Orem High School together, and after meeting and getting to know each other on that camping trip, they dated the rest of high school, and they were inseparable. They was in love, you know, all of the things. Now, throughout his whole life, status and notoriety was a big thing for Mark. He wanted to become a missionary because in the church, becoming a missionary was said to be a big thing. So he wanted to go through the training of becoming a missionary. Actually, very hard to become a missionary. You go through an extensive training. Now, I saw one article that compared the training to become a missionary to boot camp. Now, how true that is, I don't know. Mark's first mission trip, and I'm not 100% sure on whether he was still in training or not. However, his first mission trip was in Canada, and it was such a culture shock. It wasn't anything necessarily like just so spectacular about where he was at. It's just the fact that it was a different environment. And a lot of times what happens whenever these boys become missionaries, since they are fresh out of high school and they haven't seen much of the world, they lose a lot of people to the religion due to just them finally getting this taste of life. Now, whenever you're on these trips, they have this strict system, a strict set of rules that you are set to live by. They pair you up with someone, and you are not allowed to ever be away from your pairing. Whether you have to go to the bathroom 1, 2, or 3, they want your pair to stand outside that door and wait for you to come out. Along with their strict policies that they have with being paired up, the Mormon children were Oh, it's not the right knife. Let me switch. There we go. So the Mormon kids were not allowed to do any of the things that the other kids in the area were that the other kids in the area were doing. They were not allowed to read books, listen to music, or watch movies outside of anything that was deemed appropriate by the church. They also, obviously this goes without saying, were not supposed to be drinking and smoking. And they were not supposed to have any contact with anyone of the opposite sex. Now, if you're a 18-year-old boy, fresh out of high school, away from your parents and your community for the first time in this strange place, being told that you cannot do any of these things here, what do you think is gonna happen? You're gonna do them. So Mark, he just was out there and was going buck wild. He picked up smoking, drinking. It was even said that he was with women having the sex. Now, mind you, this whole time, Mark and Lori were still together. Now, the elders on the missionary trip later stated that although they knew that Mark was dating Lori in high school, he never once spoke of her or talked about her during this time on this missionary trip. Kind of as if they were on some type of break or something, but he never once spoke of her name. Now, needless to say, Mark was out here just showing his tail, acting up. So he was sent home. Now, in the Mormon community, and probably just any type of community, if you're on a trip for the church and your church community, it's probably not a good look to be sent home, and that was definitely the case. It was considered a huge embarrassment for the family to have your child sent home on these trips. However, as I stated before, Mark was a liar, an avid liar. He got worse and worse with age. He told his parents, family and friends, and even Lori that he got sent home due to the fact that he was in a car accident and he was really badly injured. Now, there have been mixed reports that his parents and even possibly Lori knew the real reason as to why he got sent home, but they were helping him cover for it, so they just went along with his story. But either way, he got booted, and then once he got back home, him and Lori just kind of picked up where they left off. After Lori graduated, she started attending Webster State University. When Mark had got booted from his trip and came home, Lori, actually being a good girl that she was, she helped him get back on track and get back on his feet and got him into school so he can get his whole life together. Now, shortly after they got married, and I actually saw in an interview that Lori's mom did that she adored Mark and she just loved him so much. He had asked Lori's mother for Lori's hand in marriage. And Lori's mom just thought that was the sweetest thing, just thinking like, what, in this day and age, who does that still? She just thought it was so sweet that he did that. So they had got married in August of 1999. They did a temple wedding in the Mormon community. I could not find the name of the temple, but I do know that in their religion, being married at the temple was considered one of the highest honors. You had to actually pass all these different types of tests and jump through hoops and do a dance and everything else just to, you know, get married at the little temple. Before I say this next part, let me just say that all of this information that I'm finding was just purely based off of my research. I know people have a lot of opinions about the Mormon community and the LDS, but I don't know how true or whatever the case may be. Let me just tell you what they said. For the wedding ceremony, they did different, I don't know if call them rituals, but different things. One of the rituals that they did was a cleansing ritual where the couple both stripped down naked and they got their whole body cleansed. They got their whole body washed and cleansed, and this was supposed to be symbolizing washing away the sins of your current life and this generation or something of that sort, but it's supposed to be cleansing of all your sins. The cleanse included your head, eyes, neck, nose, your shoulders, your arms, your feet, and their loins. How they did that, I'm not too sure. After that, a prayer was said, and they put on a traditional white attire, and they finished out the ceremony, and then you husband and wife. Boom, 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 boom. They actually did their honeymoon in Sin City. They just got their sins washed away, then they went to Sin City. Now, after they got back from their honeymoon, you know, they were settling into married life. They moved into Mark's apartment. He had gotten the apartment, I guess, a few weeks before they got married, and he secured a job for them as the apartment managers in order to have free rent. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I tried to do this myself a few times. Never worked out for me, so shout out to Mark for that one. That was a smart move, my boy. Throughout the marriage, Lori would catch Mark in little small white lies. She said it was never anything just too major for the ones that she would catch him in, but it was just more annoying and kind of like, why is you lying? And them do be the worst ones. It's like, ooh, why is you lying about something so simple? Whew. At the time, Mark was still in college with the goals of going to medical school. He was going to university in Utah at the time, and they had very different interests. Mark, he liked the outdoors. He liked going running, going outside, camping, and playing on his video game. And Lori was more of an inside girl. She liked being inside, relaxing, going to dinner. She had recently started scrapbooking. That was something that she was very into. It was a big thing for Mark to be outside. He finally got Lori into into that. He finally got Lori into running, and he was super excited about that, which will, again, come into play later on in the story. Running had been added as a part of their daily routine at this point. Lori had started working at Wells Fargo as a financial assistant, but she was also still doing the management at the apartment complex, which basically meant my girl was doing her thing. She had 2 jobs trying to hold her man down. So the couple didn't see each other very much throughout the work week due to their busy schedules. They would occasionally meet up when Lori would sneak away and meet Mark on campus in order to have lunch with him. She would always see him toting around his backpack, you know, his little pre-med books in there, and he would be studying, and she would bring her man a little sandwich here and there. Baby, that's love. Mark would even be just at home, deep in his studies, books sprawled across the table, just concentrating, focused. His mother-in-law, she really loved him because his mother-in-law actually helped him write a few papers, because around this time, Mark was planning and preparing for graduation and planning on going to medical school. So his mother-in-law helped him write a few essays for his admission papers to these medical schools. And Mark would travel back and forth to different schools to visit them, you know, to pick out his school of choice. So after finding out that Mark had been accepted into medical school and that Mark and Lori would be moving across the country in order for Mark to attend the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill School of Medicine, Lori's job, Wells Fargo, they actually threw them really Lori, but them a going away party. That is so sweet. Morning of July 19, 2004, Mark started calling around to family members, just asking had they seen Lori, and stating that Lori had went running, but she hadn't returned. So Mark was stating that Lori had went out that morning for her normal run. She had asked if he wanted to go, and he, you know, elected not to go this time. She had went running at Canyon Creek, but she had never returned. He was calling them from Memory Grove Park, stating that he was looking around for her and everything. So a few of their family and friends came out to actually help Mark look for Lori. Her car was found nearby in front of a home, but no one knew or had seen her. So at 10:07 a.m., Mark called the police and reported his wife as missing. He then at that point called his wife's employer, Wells Fargo, and he basically just told them what was going on as well. Now, at this point, a lot of people just chalked it up to him just being frantic and not knowing what's going on. But at 10:46, Mark had called the police back again and reported his wife as missing for the second time. Now, police off top was like, hold up, nah, what's going on? Now, in between these calls, and I don't know which way it happened, or if it was the first one or the second one, but Mark had also called Lori's mother and told Lori's mother what was going on, and she instantly was like, did you call the police? And he said, yeah, I called the police, and he told her where they were at and told him to call him once she made it there. Now, once she got there and they're all looking around, that's when Mark just turned to his mother-in-law and was like, oh, and by the way, she was also about 5 weeks pregnant. A little suspicious, Marky Mark. Suspicious. Now to police, just off top, day one, Mark was instantly a suspect in his wife's disappearance. Now, after the media had got wind that a jogger had went missing, they was on that case, baby, like white on rice. And Mark was on the evening news that same day. Now, on all accounts, Mark and Lori were seen as just a happy, normal, functioning couple. But baby, one thing we know is that it ain't always how it goes. Ooh, where's my bread? Cause I was looking like, what? Lori had recently just started telling her friends that she was 5 weeks pregnant, and she was very excited about this, as most women are. Now, in standard procedures like this, we always know that the spouse is going to be suspect number one, guilty until proven innocent in these types of cases. So they did start to search the home and vehicles of Mark and Lori. Now, when police inspected Lori's car, they did notice that the position of her seat, they did notice that the position of her seat and the way that the mirrors were adjusted in a way, that wasn't suitable for someone of her size, which I can relate to that, because when you're short, you be having to be all up on the doggone steering wheel. So anytime I have to drive my mom's car or even my sister's car, I always have to move the seat forward and adjust my mirrors. So that was a bit suspicious to them in itself. Now, on top of that, they searched Mark's car. When they searched his car, they found they found blood in his car, and they also found a handprint. Now, the handprint was on the back of the trunk, positioned in a way to where it looks like someone was holding their balance, trying to hold something or put something in the car that was heavy. Now, how they know that, I don't know. Now, they also found a receipt in his car for a mattress, and the mattress had the timestamp of July 19th at 10:23 a.m. Based off of that, the receipts, Mark called 911. Then he went and bought a mattress at the mattress store, and then he called 911 again. Very suspicious, Mark. When asked about this, Mark simply stated that a week prior to this, Lori had made an accident or spilled something on the mattress. and he was now replacing the mattress. And then police was like, okay, so what were y'all sleeping on this whole time, you know, after that? Mark said that this whole time they were sleeping on the box spring. Now, anybody knows that that doggone box spring is uncomfortable, because I actually have tried to do that. And the police were just not buying it. Just the more he talked and the more they looked into it, Mark was looking more and more suspicious. When they went into the apartment, they actually found Lori's wallet and her car keys. And that alone was kind of like, well, how did she drive her car to go jogging if we have her car keys here? In the bedside table in Lori and Mark's room, they actually found a drawer full of knives. And one of the knives actually included a hunting knife. It had blood and some type of fiber on it. In their spare bedroom, police had found a handwritten letter to Mark that Lori had written, and they just kind of, you know, stored this for later. Police at this point went ahead and went down to Lori's job to question her co-workers about her disappearance. Now, when they got to Lori's job, again, they found out more information. Come to find out, whenever Mark actually called Lori's job, it wasn't on the basis of saying, hey, Lori won't make it in today, she's missing, have you seen or heard from Lori? It was Mark asking, how is Lori doing? Like she was already at work, which that was suspicious. And then her job reported, well, she hasn't come into work yet. We were wondering where she was at. And that's when Mark again revealed to the job that Lori had went out jogging, but she hasn't returned. And they told him to hang up the phone and call the police and report her missing. So that's when he called and made the second 911 call. They also found out that the prior day, Lori had left work early in tears due to some type of phone call that she had in regards to Mark. Now, the coworker didn't necessarily hear the full extent of the phone call, but they heard enough to know that it was something in regards to Mark, and Lori ended up leaving home early that day. At this point, Mark's whole lives were just crumbling and just everything falling apart, and he knew it. He knew that police were getting very suspicious of him and his actions and his story of just everything between him and Lori and her going missing. Due to just all the evidence that were starting to just come out, the police brought in homicide detectives. So they kind of transitioned the missing persons investigation to a homicide investigation, but they wanted to keep this on the wrap. They didn't want Mark to know that they were looking at him, but he was already hip to the game and was knowing. Parallel to this happening, the University of Utah had come forward stating that they had caught someone trying to discard something big into their trash cans, and they also had 24/7 surveillance of those trash cans, or should I say dumpsters, as well. Feeling the pressure and the walls just closing in on him and just all the evidence that he already knew the police had in regards to him, Mark did what he did best, and he resorted to lies and causing a doggone scene. So early morning on July 20th, mind you, this is a day after he reported his wife missing, Mark was found running around in a downtown hotel parking lot, butthole naked with just his doggone shoes on. That whole day, he had been drinking and just, I guess, He had just been drinking and drowning his poor little low sorrows that whole day. He wrote a note out, and on the note it said, "This is justice." Then at that point, he took a whole handful of barbiturates, which is basically a whole bunch of pills, anxiety, depression, sleeping, just a whole bunch of ups, downs, sideways, and whichever ways. And then he continued to run around the parking lot screaming. Now, when the police were called, they already know what was going on here. They knew who he was. They knew what he was playing at and what was happening. They felt like Mark taking those pills wasn't really a real attempt of him committing, trying to take his own life. They felt like that was just him trying to confess to what he has done, but also have a case to say that he was a little bit insane. But police noted that whenever he got naked to get the running around and doing all the shenanigans, that he put the sandals back on his feet. And they're saying, if you're really out of your, if you were really out of your mind and insane, you wouldn't have the mindset to think, well, let me put on my shoes so I could protect my feet. So they already knew what he was doing. So at that point, they didn't even bother taking him to jail. They didn't even bother taking him to jail. They didn't even call to admit him to a psych ward. They just called his brother and told his brother to come pick him up. Now, at this point, Mark said, okay, well, they didn't do what I wanted them to do, so let me do it. So he actually had his brother take him to the psych ward and have himself admitted. Now, the same psych ward that he went to was actually the same one he worked at as an orderly. He worked that job overnight. While Mark was admitted into the hospital, the police just kept finding more and more evidence against him. Across the street from their apartment, they found the missing mattress. But in the mattress, there was a big hole cut out of the mattress and it was missing. Where's the hole, Mark? What happened to the rest of this mattress, Mark? I wonder what you're trying to hide, Mark. The media was doing what the media does best, and they was all up in Mark's old business, baby. They knew that Mark was supposed to be going to medical school, and they actually reached out to the University of North Carolina to just get the tea on Mark. But they got more tea than what they expected. Come to find out, Mark was not set to attend medical school at all. In fact, he wasn't even registered or enrolled in school, period. So after finding this out, detectives, they said, okay, well, let's reach out to the University of Utah, which is graduate school, because he's trying to be a doctor. Graduate school? Either way, that was the university that he had just recently graduated from. So they reached out to this school to kind of see what was up with Mark's attendance and, just in regards. Mark wasn't even a student, bruh. Mark hadn't attended school nor classes for the past 2 years. 2 years. He was just lying. He was not in school. He had just been lying about his classes, about, graduating, about going to medical school, everything. On the day that he was set to graduate, his mother-in-law and his wife was all ready to go to his graduation. This fool pretended to be sick, even going as far as taking something in order to make him actually physically be sick. And that's just crazy in itself. So later that day, Mark was feeling fine, but I guess at this point the graduation was over. So his mother-in-law was like, okay, well, let me at least go ahead and get a picture of you in your cap and gown. This boy had a whole doggone cap and gown. Where did you get the cap and gown from? I mean, I guess they just The extent that he would go to lie is ridiculous. What it turns out Mark was doing, Mark was leaving the house like he normally would every morning to make it look like he was going to school, and then when it was safe to come home, he would bring his old lying tail back to the house and sit up and play the doggone Nintendo all doggone day. He had a night job at the psychiatric ward, and that gave him access to scrubs and just the illusion to make it make sense as to why he was working at this job as an orderly. I think it said something to the effect of he was only getting paid like $8-9 an hour, but no one ever questioned this because they figured, okay, well, he's about to go to medical school. He needs to work in this field, in this industry for the experience and for his classes in order to do so. Now, he was dumb, but he wasn't dumb. Police were at this point just wanting to close everything out. They started checking the local landfills, just looking for a body, because at this point, they knew that Mark had visited a few dumpsters, and that's more than likely where the body of his wife was at. Well, that's where it had been discarded at. Mark's family did not want to believe that Mark had anything to do with this, but with the evidence just surrounding him and the case just getting just to be too much to handle, they had to face the facts that their brother did something to his wife. So the two of his brothers went and visited him at the psych ward just to beg and plead for him to just say what happened. Say what did you do? Just confess. And oddly enough, it worked. Mark went ahead and confessed to his brothers that he did something to his wife. And the story that he told, it just pisses me off. On July 16th, before Lori went to work, Lori had contacted the University of North Carolina in regards to financial aid. Questions about some financial aid in regards to Mark attending school. And a few sources said that they believe she was calling because since now that she was pregnant, she wanted to see, well, hey, is there any discounts, more deductions, more accommodations, just trying to see what she can get, because she had that baby in the oven. I definitely understand. Do what you got to do, baby girl. So she wanted to see about the financial aid and the housing options that she had. Now that's when she was told that not only was Mark not enrolled in classes or set to attend classes, but he in fact had never ever even applied to attend school. This was the conversation that her coworkers heard her having that made her go home crying. She was talking to the university in regards to Mark being a current or upcoming student at the university. When she tried to confront Mark about this in his lies, he just lied again. He tried to lie to cover up a lie, which, but one thing that I know, but when you got a liar back against the wall, they're gonna keep lying, which I don't understand as to why. It's like, sir, I know you lying, you know you lying, why are you still lying? Stop lying. But anyways, he said that it was a computer error and he actually was a student and he's already called and gotten everything handled and taken care of. But this time, Lori wasn't just having it. She wasn't just taking his word for it. She had made another attempt to get in contact with the worker at the university just to confirm what Mark was saying. However, it was after hours, so she had to leave a message and wait for a return phone call, which unfortunately Lori would never receive. Apparently, Lori had been growing more and more suspicious of Mark over the past year or so, and she actually had started telling some of her closest friends that her marriage was troubled and how Mark was a liar and he used to lie about so many things. That night, they attended the going away party that Lori's job, Wells Fargo, had put on for her. And a lot of her coworkers said that you couldn't tell that anything had just been wrong because she was in such a good mood and she was happy and everything just looked fine between them. But obviously, it was an act and a show. That Sunday night, they had a huge blowout fight where Lori was just confronting Mark and just giving him the business. She basically told Mark, either get your shit together or leave. She didn't want to have to raise her child alone, but she said that she was willing to do so if he didn't get it together because she didn't want to deal with him and his lies any longer. That night, Lori went to bed in tears. And before she went to bed, she wrote Mark a letter, which brings us back to the letter that the police have found. And while his wife was in there writing him a letter and crying her little heart out, this boy was on the doggone game, just getting mad. He was mad at her for basically calling him out on his lies and not believing his lies anymore. One thing about a man is they're gonna have the nerve and the audacity. How is it that you're the liar? You're the one that's literally been just blowing smoke up my girl's tail all these years, and you have the nerve to sit there and get mad at her. How does that make sense? So later that night, Mark had went into the room and he found the note and he got pissed off when he read it, like pissed. He stated due to his Mormon beliefs and the way he was brought up that it was considered the highest form of disrespect for a woman to disrespect a man in his own home. I guess in the Mormon or LDS religion, women are considered beneath men, which unfortunately is just apparently in their religion, women can't even go to heaven unless they're married. So the fact that Lori actually looked him in the eye and then called him a liar, oh baby, Mark was not having any of that. He felt like there was no bigger offense or disrespect than her just calling him a liar and just speaking to him the way that he did in their house, even though he was in fact a liar. Mark knew that the next morning Lori would call her mom and basically tell her what was going on, and then it would get out and the whole community would basically know about his lies, and his father and his brothers would know about his lies. His dad was a very successful doctor and his brother was said to be a doctor as well. I don't know if all of them were doctors or if it was just one. I believe it was just one, but either way, they were all successful, and Mark knew that they would know that he was lying. His dad had actually taken off work in order to help his son and his daughter-in-law move across country. So the fact that you would have me, I'm speaking like I'm his daddy, the fact that you had me take off work to help you move across country, I'm doing all this manual labor or paying my money however it went, and it's like, to go where? So he would find out that it was all a lie, that his son wasn't going to be a doctor. His son didn't even graduate college. And basically, he's helping his son move for no reason. And all of this, Mark just couldn't let that happen. So Mark went into the spare bedroom, put the letter down, grabbed his .22 caliber rifle, and he went back into the room where his wife slept and pointed the rifle at his wife's head. In his mind, Lori had disrespected him and murdered the image that he had made up of himself and put out to the community. And he felt like she had to atone for her sins. The only way to do that was with her life. So he pointed the gun at her head and he shot her, killing her instantly. Now, after killing his wife in cold blood, Mark then walked to a local corner store and bought a pack of cigarettes, feeling that he no longer needed to hide from his wife. Mark then dragged her body out of the bed, wrapped it in trash bags. He then took a hunting knife, cutting out the bed soap mattress in the middle, and took that in the sheets that were on the bed and stuffed it into the trash bag, and then put that in the back of his trunk. Then at that point put the mattress on top of his car, and he drove it across the street, putting the mattress in the dumpster, and then going down to the University of Utah, backed his vehicle into the dumpster, and then at that point disposed of his wife's lifeless body like she was just a bag of trash. He then at that point drove back to the apartment and made an attempt to clean the apartment, but he did a crap job of it, leaving a lot of blood splatter and stains everywhere. He didn't even think to get rid of the pillowcase that Lori was sleeping on. It had blood. He just balled it up and threw it in the closet or something. How stupid. Oof. My God. And Elise, where are you at? He then at that point drove his wife's car to a local park using his keys, and then just left it there. He didn't think to use her keys. He left the car there, walked back home, and that was it. He thought all his problems were solved. And then at that point, the rest is history, and it unfolded with the fake phone calls and acting like his wife was missing. Mark tried to go for the angle of pleading insanity, but the doctors at the psych ward was not fooled by him. He thought that because he worked there that he could mimic some of the patients that he's seen, and that he would, I guess, have a foot in the door to kind of have a better advantage of getting away with that by pleading insanity. But the doctor just was kind of like, boy, you have a personality disorder. You're not insane. You're just a sociopath and a narcissist. So at that point, when the police came to finally arrest Mark, the doctor just looked at him and said, yeah, take him. Now, once he got to jail, he was able to convince the doctor there that he was suicidal. But I think that was more due to the fact that he said, I'm suicidal. I want to kill my, So at that point, they have to kind of put a hold and watch on you. But that was about it. Now, at this point, his parents did actually go ahead and hire a great attorney for him. And although he had admitted to murdering his wife, that confession was admissible, and he then changed his plea to not guilty. Pretty sure by reason of insanity, but he changed it to not guilty. Now, although they had some great evidence against Mark, obviously the best type of evidence would be her body, because at this point, yes, we have a 99% sure chance that you murdered your wife, but without a body, she could still be technically missing. So they continued to search the landfills. They were combing through it. It was just, they did put a lot of good police work into this case. They had cadaver dogs out there searching. They were just combing it up top to bottom because they knew the area that her body would be in based off of the dumpster and where that dumpster has to dump their trash. However, the trash had already been through the compactor, so that did make it a lot harder. And they just were unsuccessful with just finding her body. That was until October 1st, 2004. A detective was out searching with his rake, and then all of a sudden, he saw what he thought to be long, brown, dark, curly hair, which fit Lori's description. They then began to peel back all the debris and rubble, and at that point, they did see human flesh. And they did believe that they finally found Lori's body. Now, since the trash had been through the compactor, it was hard to identify her. They honestly couldn't even tell that she had been shot because everything was just crushed. So it was just a bag of fragmented bones. However, they were able to identify Lori off of dental records. I guess there was a portion of her jaw that was left intact, so they were able to use that to identify her and confirm that it was Lori. Unfortunately, since the body had been destroyed, there was no way of determining and confirming that Lori had been pregnant at the time of her death, although Mark had admitted that he did know that she was pregnant at the time of death. They knew that any half-decent defense attorney would say, well, how do we know she was pregnant? Maybe it was just a pregnancy scare. It could be a false positive, So unfortunately, he was not able to be charged with fetal homicide, but he was charged with first-degree murder. Now, his attorney had to keep it a buck with him and let Mark know that, look, even the best attorney is not going to be able to get you up out of this. We're going to have to go in court in front of your friends, family, and your community and tell them how you lied to your wife for years, you went and picked up a gun, and you pointed a gun at her head while she slept and just shot her to death. There's really no way for us to kind of spin this. So at that point, just thinking about everyone just hearing everything about him and how he would have to just admit everything out in the open, Mark did go ahead and change his plea to guilty. Now, in the state of Utah, the maximum sentence for first-degree murder was 5 years to life. And obviously, everybody was upset about that, especially Lori's mother. He got 5 years to life with an added year due to him using a firearm in the murder. So he got 6 years to life. That was his sentence. Just due to the uproar and just the ludicrousness of the sentencing, the parole board did have to actually go on record and state that although it's 6 years to life, the 6-year mark is just when Mark is eligible to go up against the parole board. Now, they have made it known and stated that his first parole hearing is set in 2035. So he's going to have to do at least 30 years before he's even up for parole, which sits a little bit better with my spirit, and I'm pretty sure with everyone else's. Mark is currently serving out his sentence in Central Utah Correctional Facility, where he's still up to all his different shenanigans. I don't even want to get into that because I feel like we've already wasted so much time just dealing with this horrible person. Like, you killed your wife because she was no longer believing you in your lies. That's just ridiculous. And you killed your unborn child. Just freaking disgusting. Mark's mother actually went on record stating that she had his name removed from her, so it's no longer Lori Hacking. She stated that he clearly didn't want her anymore the way that he just threw her out, like she was trash. And I completely agree with her. Like, get that name off of me. You obviously didn't want me, so why do I need to have your name? So shout out to the mom. Now, she has come forward here recently stating, although she hasn't forgotten, she does forgive Mark. Apparently, she really did love him, and she had a high respect and just a great relationship with him prior to that, but nothing is ever going to bring her daughter back, and she will never forget that. But I do hope you guys enjoyed today's story. I hope you enjoyed my I hope you enjoyed my kids' breakfast meal prep. Now, just keep in mind with these, you can keep them in your freezer up to 3 months. Mine's never last that long because my kids demolish these. But I want to again say thank you so very much for watching another episode of Murder Meals. Just again, remember to like, subscribe, and share my video, and also go ahead and check out my previous videos if you haven't already done so. But until next time, bye.